Yes, let's go. It's another Sunday, and you're welcome to the one and only show on the planet. Well, wait, there's the Let's Code More Power show. Yes, but the one and only show that talks about the Power series, brings the minds, the giants, the legends, the great people that make the Power platform awesome, awesome, awesome. Today, we have another amazing, exquisite. Now, there's a confession I'm going to make on the show today. I'm not sure our guest knows, but I am going to make that confession. It's going to blow your mind. So, before we get kicking, stick and stay. Let's watch a montage. I'll be right back. Yep, we are back. We're back, and this is the Power Series. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn, good day, good whatever it is, wherever you find yourself on the planet. I am yours truly, Samuel Adjani, and as you know, before we get into the show, the things I want to get out of the way. And yes, if you heard it, you saw it, you read it, you checked it. Yes, I got my MVP nomination for Microsoft Azure. Yep. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I got that. Amazing. Thanks to all the great people that supported me, my family, the MVP community, Donna, Lawrence. I can't mention names. Thank you all for making this possible. It only means that there's a lot more work to be done. There's a lot of fun to have. And like today, talk of fun, I think it's in line for me to welcome our guest with a clap offering. Let's welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my guest to the show, Audrey. You're live. Welcome to the Power Series, Audrey.
Hey, how's everybody? This is great being here, and congratulations on your nomination and your award. That's awesome.
Thank you, thank you,
That's
thank you,
very
thank you, thank you.
exciting. Yeah.
It's being someone would say a long time coming. It's actually one of the things that I really looked up to since I heard about the MVP years and years and years ago. I kept telling myself I want to be there one time, like one day I'm going to make it one day, and then it was mind blowing. And to think that it came on 1st of April, I was like, wait, am I sure it's not some April Fool's joke? But
Oh, that would be funny.
but yeah, we made it, and I'm very grateful. Thanks guys. Uh, Thanks for the love. So, Audrey, before we commence, I mentioned
Yes.
that I have a confession to make, and I'm not sure if
Okay.
you know it. No, I don't think you know it because it was a long time. So I have been making use of Logic apps because of Azure and all, because I was really a heavy Azure person, and I liked
Okay.
automation. Like I really would die for automation. So
Yes.
Flow and Logic apps functions were my thing. Then I did
Yes.
a couple of reporting with Power BI because of business needs, so I had used them, and already we're building bots. So nothing new, but then I don't know what happened. There was this day, I think it was one of the community calls or something that you led. It was a online virtual something, and you were talking
Okay.
about power ups.
Okay.
And I sat in the virtual conference, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but I sat in it, and after that I was like, wow, this is interesting. Then I started paying attention to power ups. So just so you know, my first love to power ups, I got it from this lady, this awesome lady. Who, I mean, I'm sure she doesn't know this, but I mean, it's good for
That's
me to bring it
awesome.
up
I
on the
did
show. So,
not know
Audrey,
that.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you very much for that introduction. And today we have you on the show. We're really
Okay.
grateful and honored
Excited.
to have you. I'm sure people
Yes.
are rambling and waiting for the goodness we're gonna have. But just as we do on the show, we always want to know, who Audrey is, how you got into technology, how you got into Microsoft, and how you got onto the power ups, craziness, and all that. Because we believe that someone is listening. It will be an interesting here for the person. So the floor is yours.
Oh, that's great. So I got into technology as a little girl. I was always into anything that I could press buttons, and I would always be interested in learning things. And as I got older, I was in the beginning of like I was alive when Microsoft began, and these were all technologies that were attractive. I was working at Citibank when I first started learning using computers and really getting deep. And then as life went on, I had such a love for technology that I decided to be someone who would help businesses. And so I've done consulting. And just before I started at Microsoft full time, I also had my own business. And I sold hybrid scenarios, like help get your Exchange boxes to the cloud, help you get your SharePoint docs off file servers and up to SharePoint Online, but also Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI. People usually wanted a Power BI solution that was like, because Power Apps, and at the time it was called Flow, they were both in beta. But the best way to get your Power BI project off the track is to leverage Power Apps and Power Automate in order to standardize intake systems. Because once you have your intake system standardized, it's really easy to connect your Power BI dashboard to that, you know, and so it resolves a lot of problems where people have data everywhere. And how do you get that more standardized so that you can aggregate data across verticals, right? And so Power Apps and Flow helped me so much that I got addicted to them, and I started selling out of the box solutions for Power Apps and Flow to my customers in construction management. So you'll see a little bit of that today. My niche is construction management, dams, bridges, tunnels, wastewater, the big projects, right? That always need MIS, but they're not, you know, well funded there. So I got on the Power Apps team because my app broke. My app broke and I lost a client. And that sounds like bad news, but because I was connected to support and then to the customer success team, some of you may know Pratap. Pratap said, "Would you like to join the team and help us grow this product?" And it was very early at that time, but I talked to people, and I met Darshan, who was my first manager. He was phenomenal. And so I accepted the position. And I spent my first 2 years at Microsoft focused on driving community growth, nurturing people from asking their very first question to being an MVP. And so it was a very exciting opportunity. And I met people all over the world that I've since made friends with. And it's very exciting to see how Power Apps has grown. But then I wanted a little bit more technical. And so I said, I want to be a feature PM so that I can change the product. And that's what made me join Power Automate. And so past year, I've been with Power Automate focused on flows. And I find Flow to be the kind of like the glue that puts everything together. And you'll see that in my demo today. And then I have a great passion for teams. And so I'm starting a focus on teams as well. So as my career progresses, I'm doing all the favorite things that I have that enable the business and that I enjoy teaching and sharing and solutioning. That's my story. And I apologize for being late today. And I'll try to make the demo a little slower.
No, that's
Yes.
actually on me, not you. So that's on me. So nothing much, nothing from your side. That's interesting. That's interesting to know, your growth from, always being around technology and then into Microsoft and all that, and now to know that you have a direct influence on the product and you can change the features. That's amazing, and that's something that some of us look up to. Like, well, we connected with people like you that we can always reach out and say, hey, I'm trying to do something. Can you look at it for me? And that's one thing, guys. I can tell you that Audrey is really good at. I've been in a couple of community calls, and I can see the passion with which she does it. The very last one you're talking about, some changes to the UI where you can now edit in place, and I could feel that, yes, she was really into it. So I'm very excited, and we're going to have
Okay.
a very awesome time. So
Okay.
this is all yours now. I mean, tell us what you have, and hey, the whole world is watching.
Okay. Okay. This is great. So I hope you can see the PowerPoint. This is
Yep,
just
we
for
can.
5 minutes. We'll be here, and then we're going to do all the rest live. But I want you to understand where I'm going in this demo. So I have always had the impression that all of these tools that we all know and love become extremely powerful when we start to use them in combination. And so I'm always looking for opportunities to solution where many pieces of the puzzle are involved because I find it grows the value, right? And so we recently added Power Virtual Agents. That's a brand new service that has been added to the stack. And, as soon as something new comes, I want to kind of discover, oh, how easy is this to do? I look at it from a citizen developer perspective, or maybe a power user perspective is probably more accurate. And I'm trying to find out, okay, what can I solution easily without code using this technology? And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about how I see Power Virtual Agents. And you'll see me talking a lot about those. But in all of them, you also must remember that we have the beauty of being part of all of Microsoft's cloud subscriptions. So Azure, Dynamics 365, Office 365, which gives us a wide breadth of impact, right? We can impact many of these cloud services all together using these products. And if we leverage things like common data service, now we can do something once and use it in many places. So it's really, really cool how this platform works together. And so today I want to talk about a typical business scenario from my past. You might remember that I mentioned I was in construction management.
Yeah.
Construction is pretty challenging in that there's so many moving pieces. It's very rare that when you build something, you have one contractor. You usually have many contractors because you don't want to lead that project on just one dependency. So you'll have several contractors. If you're doing something like a light rail or a wastewater pipe, you'll divide them up into different contractors. And then there's a bunch of design people doing drawings and delivering those drawings. And there's a whole bunch of other important people involved. So all those communications need to be fostered in a way that keeps the product owner, or I should say the project owner, the person who's paying for the construction, keeps them aware of exactly what's going on, right? So that they know when their thing's going to get done, right? So in this case, I've taken the change order process and I'm focusing on that because it's something that most people can understand. Somebody requests a change, somebody has to approve that change, and then life goes on. But I'm going to walk you through the 5 parts of this solution, and I'm going to show you the solution complete, and then we'll talk about the lessons learned that I have. By the way, everyone, this is my second solution, including virtual agents. Wow. My first one was very small, very quick. This is my second. And so you're going to see my impressions as a first-time user. Okay, and so it should be interesting to you. I will tell you what lessons I learned, and I will tell you the best practices that I kind of figured out. And I read very little documentation. So I'm fairly impressed at what virtual agents is offering, given that, right? So the first thing we're going to have is we're going to have virtual agents jump in as a bot. Now, and all of this is happening on Teams, right? A virtual agent is going to jump in as a bot and enable you to ask about specifications. Usually contractors need help with specifications. They may have to put a request for information, blah, blah, blah. But I thought it might be a cool idea to give them access to the specs right on Teams. Now, if in that same bot, they can request a potential change order. That's what PCO stands for. It's always potential because it's not approved, right? When the potential change orders get approved, they go into a change order list that updates all the schedules and the cost, right? And then there's got to be some escalations. Whenever something that they're doing or asking for needs extra attention, we're going to escalate it to the resident engineers, and they're going to have a channel dedicated to handling those escalations. Now, if all goes well, we'll end up approving their potential change orders, and that will update their contracts, and all of that will be visible on the Power BI dashboard that's in a tab in Teams. So we're going end to end here. We're not playing around, right? We're going to see how much value can we give the business with just a little bit of work. And to let you know, I rebuilt this. So I built it once Saturday, and I rebuilt it this morning just to see, how long would this take? This is a solution that takes approximately 2 hours start to finish. Okay, and then we'll do something together that takes less time, right? So that you can see kind of how you work through those steps. All right, so let's start by looking at what this looks like. And we're going to start with Teams. Let's see if I can get to Teams. Is that how I get to Teams? Yes. Yep. Okay, So here I am in Teams, and you'll notice I have a bot called CM Bot, Construction Management Bot.
Mhm. Mhm.
And now I can ask that bot for specifications, right? So I can just put the word specification in there, and then the bot will say, I'll be glad to help you
Oh.
clarify any of the project specifications. What specification are you interested in? So I can just press any of these buttons, and it will actually give me the specification on the screen. Now, depending on the specification, I might have variants. So like, let's say
Mm.
specifications again. And this time we're going to ask for 503. And the reason why this is special is because 503 has all these subsections,
Mm.
right? And
Okay.
so it's letting me know this specification has a core introduction and subsections. Please specify what you would like. So I can get these kind of conditions where I can predict where there needs to be variants and add them to the bot. Now I'm going to change route and try to get specification 504. So I'm going to do this one more time. And there's a couple things I can type to get specifications, and I'll show you that in virtual agents. Yeah, that's right. Yes. And so notice that I'm going to pick 504, a little bit different this time because 504 is a complex
Mm.
specification. We've decided to include a drawing, right? So it asks, would you like to see the drawings? The drawings are stored on SharePoint. If I say
Ah.
yes, it goes to SharePoint. Well, first it's going to make sure I'm the right company because it needs my contact information. And so I'm going to go ahead and confirm what company I'm with. I could be a frontline worker.
Mm.
Okay, so now it says, hold on, I'm sending the drawing to your company contact. It will appear in their Microsoft Teams activity. And all that happens so fast that it's already sent. And so did that answer your question? I can just say yes. Now, notice that with normal virtual agents, you get these smiley faces and
Mhm.
frowny faces.
Yeah.
That does not support it in Teams yet,
Okay.
but you can still rate from 1 to 5, 5 being
Mm.
the best.
But
Okay?
so Audrey, hold on just a sec. So all this is coming from the virtual agent. So it's a
Yes.
PVA that you've deployed into Teams.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'm going to show you how to do it too. It ain't hard, right?
Yep, yep,
Uh,
yep.
so let me just check my chat. Notice in my chat here, Flo sent a card, and you can see that I have a
Ah.
construction drawing. And so the construction drawing, sometimes I notice it does take a little bit of time sometimes. So the one we just sent hasn't come through yet, but it will come through. It doesn't usually break. Basically, what's happening with that bot is it's going to look in SharePoint to
Mhm.
find the right drawing, and then it just sends it to the
Okay.
person that is the contact for Fabricom. So this is the next thing I kind of want to show you. In SharePoint, the way I've set this up is there is a construction management portal, and that construction management portal has 3 types of different site contents, right? So we have contractors lists. This is a very important list. Notice it has my name as the email. That's just so that my
Mhm.
flows don't break,
Yep.
right? But in real life,
Yeah.
that would, yeah, because otherwise we'd be sending to some contractor. But basically, this holds their contract value. This is the value they bid on, and this is their current value. This is
Mm.
important because in construction, contractors will often take advantage and over change order until they
Yeah.
double their bid, right?
Yeah.
So they underbid and then they keep adding. So basically, this list is keeping track of end dates and current baseline
Mm.
so that when these PCOs are approved, the baseline will be updated. So you're going to see that as well. So let's go back to Teams and do a PCO. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my bot and I'm going to say potential change order. I believe I can also say PCO. Okay, so I say potential change order. It says, would you like to request a change to your current budget or schedule? Yes. Then it wants to kind of know why, right? So I'm going to say fences were destroyed by bears overnight. So the bears tore down our fences, so we need new fences. Typical kind of thing that might happen, all right? So now that it knows what's reason, it wants to know what my contract number is, and I'm going to do 1. And the contract number is just the ID on SharePoint, but you could also make it a literal contract number on SharePoint. I just didn't have any contract numbers, so I just used the ID. You can use whatever you want. It checks your company. So it ran a flow to go see what is contract number 1, and then it's confirming with me, are you sure this is Contoso Contractors? So I can say yes. If I say no, it'll ask me for contract number again, right? What is the impact type? Do you need more money or do you need more time? So I'm going to do cost, right? And now it wants to know what my cost estimate is for replacing these fences. What's interesting is we have a money entity that enables me to type in here more than just a number.
Numbers, okay.
So it recognizes that's money. I'll show you that too. If I forget, remind me. Please enter the number of additional days needed. I'm going to just put 0 because we don't have any schedule impact in this case. And now your change order request has been successfully submitted. You should receive a response within 72 hours. Thank you for your patience. Now, so I just want to show you a couple of things that happen. If we go back to our SharePoint site and we go to the PCO log where all the potential change orders are being stored, you will see on the bottom my practice before we came. And then here is the one we just did. Fences were destroyed by bears overnight. So you see that? That went through just fine. And then if we go to Teams and we go to the construction management, you'll see that they have an approval waiting. So
hold on, Audrey. Is this an adaptive cart?
Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool?
No, this is crazy. You know, I kept looking at the flow. I was like, hold on, no, maybe I'm not seeing right. But this is adaptive cards.
Yeah.
In Teams
that's
from
why I'm using
PVA.
Yes, but I'm also leveraging
Wow.
Power Automate to do that, right? So you're going to see all this in the virtual agent. I'm just walking you through the value here so you can understand this is worth your time if you're trying to learn stuff, right?
It's actually even worth the 2 hours if we have to stream 2 hours live. I'm ready to do that.
Well, I don't know if everybody has time to listen, but here's the link to the SharePoint site so that you could open the actual change request. So the whole beauty of Teams, in my opinion, is you keep everything together. Sorry, I changed Teams.
Yeah.
You keep everything together. You don't have people looking all over creation for stuff. They can basically do a lot of stuff right there in the hub of where they're working, right? So I'm going to go ahead and approve this. Now, this is for $2,500. I want to show you something. So let's go back to SharePoint one more time. Let's see if I can get there. Me and tab management is always fun. Kind of close this one. Here we go. SharePoint. I'm going to go look at the so we did Contoso Contractors, and right now their baseline is 190. So they've almost asked for, they've asked for a lot of money, okay? But it's 190 right now. So if I approve this, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, that's going to add it to it, add to 2,500 to it.
Yep. And notice the response we get back. Change order approved. Contractor now has a new baseline value of $192,500 from the original bid of $168,000. Exactly what the user needs. And this is where I'm passionate, Sam. Everybody, when they're building with these tools, should not be thinking, oh, this is a cool tool. They should be thinking, what problems can I solve? How can I help people be better educated so that they can make decisions faster, have a whole lot less stress, and not have to sign in all over creation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, this is the goal, not the showing off of the technology, the solving of problems.
That's amazing. Okay, so this is, I mean, from a business perspective, you know, it's real insight, it's transparency, it's knowing that, you know, you are taking these actions right from within your teams. And I mean, this would have been something that conventionally or traditionally would have gone into an email, you know, pending approval if you have checked your email or not. You know, so this is cool. This is really cool.
And the way I did this approval, just to piggyback on top of your point, is I did the approval in such a way that they could catch it here if they want to, but they could also catch it on their mobile device. They could also catch it in the approval center. So I'm not blocking them either. Like, I'm letting them, whatever's comfortable to you. We're inclusive. We're inclusive here, you know. Whatever flow floats your boat. So I'm going to show you one more thing. This is kind of an important thing. I'm going to do another PCO. And this time I just typed PCO. And it says, you want to request a change? I'm going to say yes. And then explain the change. Okay, I'm going to say need 4 bulldozers as the others were stolen. Shame on that, right? It's people stealing stuff. You know, it's the whole distant. There's less people out there. So, you know, please enter your contract number. I'm going to go ahead and hit 2 this time, just so you can see that it's really looking it up. And it's going to ask me if I'm Fabricam, and I can say yes.
Yeah.
Now, you could imagine that 4 bulldozers is pretty expensive, right?
Expensive, yeah.
We set a limit of 5,000 on these PCOs. So if they put in more than 5,000, that's going to create an escalation.
Yep.
I'm going to put in 15,000. No days needed. And that's a double check for the scheduler. And then notice it says the amount of your change order is over 5,000. Therefore, it has been escalated to the resident engineer bridge. You will be contacted to join the bridge within 24 hours. Thank you for your patience. Okay, now here's the cool thing about this, guys, and this is where, you know, my love for Teams is gonna come flying out here. We gotta notice to the resident engineers that somebody just asked for something higher than we expected. But if they say that a bridge is not needed, like suppose there was a big conversation and we already know about this and it's been approved, I don't need to do a bridge automatically. I can say no. But if I say yes, here's the cool thing that happens on this one that I probably can't show you now because I was getting some throttling on Teams that was causing it to retry. But I can definitely help you understand how to do this. When they hit yes here, it creates the team and the channels needed for the bridge. So that you can go ahead and invite people to that bridge and get started. So you don't even have to create the channel. And what this does is it enables you to make your channels, how should I say, your channels predictable, right? If you always have to create your channel, if you always have to create it, then it's not standardized, right? So you can see this is code that you use. It's pure JSON that you use to create a channel, Teams with a channel. And if you want to try this yourself, you can just go to, I'm just going to show you this. If you go to Microsoft Graph, add the tab up. We're going to pull it up again. You can actually do this just by doing a post here. You need to be signed in because you're going to create yourself as the owner of that team. But then this is a beta. So this is why there's still work to be done here. But it's a great beta. So I think I was going to copy that from here. I'm going to copy that from here and put it in here. Now I'm going to make a slight change here though. I'm actually going to remove the owner because I'm signed in on Graph. I don't need this. In Flow, I need that to say who I am. And I can use the Active Directory to get that number. But I don't need it here. So I'm just going to run this query so you can see it run.
Okay. Oh, yeah, successful.
Yeah. Now, if we go back to Teams, you see the brand new team?
Yeah, it's being added.
And it'll take about a minute to get all the channels, but all the channels will appear
populated
right here. And also, you might have noticed in my code that I was even able to add apps. So what apps will be available in that channel, right? And you do that by finding out what your apps are. There are a lot of samples here, right, where you can look up and play around with Teams. But there's also awesome documentation where the API references that can help you do a lot of things. What we did just now was we did create a group. When you look at the documentation, one of the most important tips I can give you for anything, you know, that requires creation is that you have to check the permissions, all right? And you have to be a Teams admin or a global admin to give these permissions, right? But those of you that are admins, think about the opportunities you have to release to your tenant. Now, here's the little bit of bad news, but I believe it's short-term bad news. So as it is today, virtual agents can only be deployed as a personal app.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
let me give you a little caveat to that. So first of all, I'm pretty sure that the team is heading towards letting you do more than personal apps, and I'll show you how you install in Teams. But you can also export the app and give
Mm.
it to other people so that they can import it as a personal app. So
Okay.
yeah, but that's the only thing that I was kind of disappointed that I could only do a personal app. And in a business scenario like this, I would not want that to be a personal app. I would want that to be a team app. But
Okay.
I wanted to share
Unlike
this with you
so Audrey,
anyway.
quickly, unlike in Power Apps where you can deploy as a tenant, tenant app or as a user specific app, we're hoping that this feature will come in PVA or Power Virtual Agent so we can do that as
Yeah.
well. We're hoping that
Yeah.
happens. Okay.
Yes, and you can use Graph too, to do some of that stuff. We're
Awesome.
still in beta, so as far as team goes, there's still a beta. I'm anxious to see us get out of beta with that because I bet you there's going to be a lot of opportunity there, and all of us should like be standing by, waiting with bated breath to get started because I am not a developer. I'm the farthest thing from a developer. I know a little tiny bit of JavaScript, a little tiny bit of CSOM, HTML, all the stuff we used to have on SharePoint, XSLT, that kind of stuff. But I'm not a coder. Like, not my favorite thing to do to code. And to be able to do an end-to-end solution this easily just really blows my mind. And you can see the 2500 has been added. You can also check the version history here. And you can see that that baseline was updated.
Oh, yeah, updated. Yeah.
So is that my, I mean, I'm just like, when I see what I can do in 2 hours, I go, wait a minute, this
Hmm.
is totally worth my time, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah, it is.
yeah, I don't get involved in stuff that isn't going to help me solution, right? If I don't feel like I'm going to get far, I don't get involved. So this, I think, is awesome. So let me kind of introduce you to the agent itself.
Hmm.
Do you have chatting capability?
Yeah.
Could check to see if there's anybody who doesn't know what Power Automate is, doesn't know what SharePoint is, and doesn't know what virtual agents is, or any of those people around, so I can give introductions where needed. So say
Um.
if you don't, yeah,
So let's see. Pretty
yeah,
much most people on the chat right now.
yeah,
No one has said I don't know anything about it.
okay,
We've actually treated a few of these things on previous episodes of some of my shows. So I think we're good to
okay,
go. But if they
okay,
prompt me, it would actually inform me on who to bring up next for whatever
okay,
area. Yeah.
okay. Okay, and that'll be great. I can connect you to the people on the virtual agents team. They're partners with
Awesome.
us. It's a
Awesome.
different team. Yes. All right. So here I am in my Power Virtual Agents bot. This is interesting. This is the first thing that I learned that I kind of didn't catch right away. When you come into virtual agents for the first time, it asks you to create a bot. That's the
Mm,
first thing it asks you. And as soon as you create that bot, that's where you are. Like everything on this left navigation and everything on the bottom refers, so that whole left side only refers to this bot, right? And that was like one thing I didn't catch right away, but just pointing it out to you. If I wanted to see other bots or I
mhm.
wanted to create a new bot, then I would use a little bot icon over here,
Yep.
and now you can see that I am looking at my CM helper bot
Helper. Yeah.
and I have the ability to create a new bot. But just remember that as long as you're in a bot, all of that stuff on the left is about that bot. Make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Makes now, very important thing also is that when they first offer you the bot, they offer it to you in your default environment, which is fine. But if you change that environment, let's say you want to put your bot in a different environment, very important that that different environment has CDS.
Mm. Yeah.
So it needs to have a database installed. And if you create an environment and then send yourself an approval for something, the approval will provoke the creation of the database. It just takes some time. So you might have to do that. Like I would do that as a prerequisite the day before. Just go
Mhm.
ahead, decide where you want to keep your bot, and set up the environment, make sure it has a database. I always suggest using sample data in your database. So you're just getting ready. I already had a database in my default environment, so I didn't have to think about that at all. And where that becomes really important is, let's suppose your bot needs to start an approval. It will not be able to start an approval if there is no database there, because approvals are run on CDS, right? Many things are actually run on CDS behind the scenes. And so just make sure you have a database, okay? I'm teaching you all my lessons learned as well.
Yeah, that's very important.
So you don't have to, you figure it out, right? So
Yeah.
then this page is awesome. When you first create a bot, and you're going to start by doing your topics, your greeting, and your topics. And your greeting is like, what does the bot say when it first starts? So you can customize that. Then you can go to your publish. This is where you're going to publish it to somewhere. And it's fun. We can publish it to a lot of places. And then this is our analytics. I'm so impressed that so early. So virtual agents is a relatively new product, but they thought of analytics out of the box. And I was like, as soon as they got through they just GA'd with analytics. That's huge to me. I don't think I've seen anyone else GA with analytics, right? And they got good analytics too. You can find out how many times your bot was used, whether or not people were actually enjoying it, whether they were ignoring it, abandoning it. So great analytics as well. And you can click on each of these links to learn more about that. Then they have a lovely area underneath that for all your intro videos. And yes, even though you may not have a lot of time, I would suggest you at least watch videos the first video, the fourth, and the fifth. So that's Audrey's recommendation. The team would probably say watch them all, right?
Yeah. If you have time, just go through it, and there's always something to learn in all the videos.
Yes. And there are a lot of videos. So these are what they consider to be top. But if you click on view all videos, it'll take you into their own little, they have their own YouTube channel where you can find lots of videos. And I do suggest watching it, because, another thing it did for me, looking at a couple of the videos, was it helped me kind of get ideas. Oh yeah, I would use that in this case, because they usually put the feature in the setting of a scenario. So it helps you to get new ideas too. So look at videos not only for learning, but for getting new ideas. And that's what I'm hoping that I do for you today, is give you some ideas. But you start, so I'm going to hit customize your greeting, and I just want to show you what that is. And the greeting is really important for Teams, because Teams always uses this default greeting. So because it's a default greeting, I would go in there and just change this, right? Go look and see what's in there. Basically, what's at the top are all the things that a person might say. But this one is the thing that the bot responds to those greetings. But if they don't say anything on Teams, the first thing it will do is give these 3 messages. So in the case of my bot, what I should have done, which I didn't, and here's my lesson learned, right? I can help with specifications and change orders, right? So get specific. And if you don't want to offer a human agent, you don't have to. You can delete that, right? And now when this runs on Teams, it will start with, hello, I'm a virtual agent. I can help with specifications and change orders, or whatever else you want to type there. And then it'll wait a second, and then it'll say, so what can I help you with today? So this is like your greeting. And lesson learned on my end is you should do it first, put it in context with what you want to do. Now, believe it or not, I'm going to save this. And so when I publish the bot again, now I would get this new update. Okay. Yep. So now I'm going to go to the next thing, which is topics, right? Yeah. Topics are the most important thing. And you really, so at this time in the current state of the product, bots don't talk to bots, right? So bot doesn't say, hey, I'm a spec bot, I'm gonna give you to the PCO bot. That's not possible,
Yeah.
right? You can pass to an agent if you
Mhm.
have a certain Dynamics product, which I think
Mhm.
it's customer services. I have to look it up and show you the name of the product. You can pass it to an agent because that's a service-driven
Yeah.
service that integrates with virtual agents. So you could pass it to a human. But if you want to have multiple bot-like experiences, and you need a topic for each of those experiences.
Okay.
You notice that I first started with specifications details, but then when I started typing about PCOs, it went to that.
Yeah.
And so as many kind of bot-like scenarios you want, you will have a different topic for each one. Now, tip, and this is only with Teams. What I noticed with Teams, and this could be a bug, I'm not sure, is that when you have many topics, you have this on-off thing over here. And so what I had done is I had turned off the default topics
Mm.
so that I could keep them as a reference, because default topics are really great for like learning how things are
Learning.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I turned them off, they didn't play in the web, but they still did in Teams. So I actually removed those extra topics as well so that they're not there. And so Teams only sees whatever you have here. And again, that could be a bug. I'll find out. Now, underneath that is system topics. System topics are not like regular topics because they're not related to the conversation that the user is interacting with. They're what you decide to use. So you might decide after you finish a conversation about some particular thing to route them to the goodbye topic. And so this would be you in the visual agent, and we're going to go to the designer in a minute. You'd be connecting the last part of your thing to goodbye, and then goodbye would pick up from there, right? And so these don't have to be used at all. They're there for your benefit, kind of like giving you some very common things. Escalation is purely for getting them to talk to an agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see some of them don't even have trigger phases. They're just things that you can configure to happen when you say, go ahead and end conversation. Go ahead and confirm failure or confirm success. So that, I think these are really cool. I really enjoyed using them. Okay. Another thing I'll get back to. So I got to watch time. I don't want to go too far over time here. So I'm going to show you another thing. So let's open up one of these topics. I'm going to open up specification details. And the first thing you do when you set up topics is you have a name and you have a description for your topic. But I think that it's really important to put in trigger phases. And I would put a minimum of 5, but an average of 10. What is a trigger phrase? What might that contractor say when he wants specifications? He might say specs. He might ask about documentation. He might ask, do you have specification documents? We want to like kind of give some predictions on what he might say. And then the more we give the agent, the more in machine learning will kick in and AI will kick in to kind of reach conclusions. But if we only have 2 triggers there, you're not giving the AI enough to kind of learn from, right? Yeah. So I try to do an average of 10 trigger phrases, and I do differentiate them. And then after you add your trigger phases, you go to your authoring canvas. And this is where I'm going to kind of point out some lessons learned and stuff, because I know a lot of people have seen demos on this already. So I just want to point out, again, lessons learned and best practices. So this is where you saw the bot ask about the project specifications. Now, when I first did this, I actually entered these in one at a time. And here's another caveat. In most things like the web, you can have many options. In Teams, I think the maximum is 10. So I'll actually give you a link to the known issues so that you're aware of where there's some variance with Teams, and you'll be able to work around that variance, right? And so in this case, I have these options. And what I love about when I enter options, like my first experience with this was so precious, because it added all the conditions for me. And I was like, ooh, we need that in Flow. It just,
Exactly. No,
It
that that
just,
in
I was
as
like,
much
this is
as
awesome.
that would be a good thing in flow, I still believe there is that, control they want you to have in flow, as
Yes, yes,
opposed to,
yes.
but I mean, but this is a cool thing. I
Thank
mean,
you for
it's
sticking up for Flow. But I think I'd love that. I would love that for Switch Case. Like that would be awesome for Switch Case, right?
that I
Not for
agree. That I agree
yes,
to.
yes. So anyway, and also it gives you a variable. Now
Variables,
I
yeah.
am pretty anal about naming protocols, and
Mm,
so I change all my variable names,
okay.
and I'm very consistent about my variables.
Hmm.
So when I'm in Flow Power Automate, I will
Okay.
use var only for the names
Oh,
of
okay.
my variables, var and the name. In
Hmm.
here, I'm using PBA, and it helps me to read my flows better. I know
Okay.
which ones are
Okay.
from the app, it's from the flow itself versus which ones are coming from PBA. And so it just helps me set yourself a naming protocol for your variables, and life will just get more obvious, right?
Yeah.
But here's my
Yeah.
lesson learned. Here's what I wish I had done here, just to show you. There's this thing called, and I learned about it like an hour after I did this. Because like I went through the known issues and stuff to make sure I taught you guys the right stuff.
Yeah.
But there is a way of setting up what's called entities. Like I talked to you earlier about the
Earlier
money
about, yeah.
entity.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I'll show you the money entity so you can see. But when you use entities instead of doing it manually, now if they type specification 502, this question can be skipped
Mm.
because it's smart about entities,
Entities. Okay.
right? But not when you hand type it. So whenever you can use entities, you should.
You
And
should.
I'll show
Okay.
you the money entity in a minute. All right, so now we've got a response for that answer, and you can go in and fill our conditions in.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and so I actually did this. There's also a way of using a fax page, like so.
Hmm.
Maybe we'll go ahead and build a bot if we have time with the Power Automate fax, right? And actually, it will build all the topics for you from
For you. Okay.
fax, right?
Okay.
From
Yeah.
fax online, right? But I built them manually just because there was only a few, and I really wanted to kind of walk through this feel. I didn't want it to be automatic in my learning experience, really. Um, and in each case, you see that I'm putting the variable so that they remember what they asked
What they
for.
asked for. Okay. Yeah.
I'm always thinking about my consumer. What's going to
Yeah.
happen? What if he walked away, right? And then he
Hmm.
comes back, I want him to be able to know where he is all the time and what's going on.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
notice that this one, remember we had a little condition here.
Yeah. For
That one
five or
had
three. Yeah.
subsection. So all I did in that condition is before giving the message, which is the same
Okay.
format, I
Hmm.
first asked what would the subsection be,
B. Okay.
right?
Okay.
And so you're just kind of asking questions, and then based on those answers, you're getting new conditions, and based on those new conditions, you're configuring the answers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then over here, the fun one was where we did the drawing.
Yeah. That part.
So
Yeah.
that was 504, I believe, right? 504, and I purposely like did them different so I could show you different things. So on 504, you have. Would you like to see these
A
drawings?
drawing.
And you
Okay.
have.
Hmm.
I never can say this word, Sam. Can you say that word for me?
Boolean.
Thank you. And is this true or false?
Yes, a boolean. Yeah.
Yes. And so I named it, do you want to see it? And if it's true, if it's not true, I can end that conversation. And this is
Okay.
those system things. Remember I said
Mm.
those system
Yeah.
topics?
Yep.
So all I had to do was end it with the end of conversation. But
Mm.
here, I got their company name first, and kind of
Mhm.
for double reasons. I needed to go to SharePoint to get the drawing that has
Mhm.
been approved for that company.
Yep.
And so in order to do that, I needed to get there isn't an authentication happening right here. You can
Mhm.
add it, but
Yeah.
there isn't one happening. And so I was giving it that lowest common denominator. What if you don't have authentication and that's not possible? That's
Possible.
not
Yeah.
a problem. Get
Mhm.
the information from the consumer and then
Mhm.
go look it up in your data, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so he kind of says, wait a second, I'm going to go check something. Then the first thing he does is check the company name, and that
Mhm.
goes into the first flow.
Well,
Now,
okay.
here's the thing about flow or Power Automate. I'm going to get it right, okay? When you want to add a flow, so if you were to, let's see if we can get a plus sign to come up somewhere, right here.
Yep.
you get this thing called call and action,
Action.
right? And the biggest lesson learned I want you to have here is that these flows, if you create them here, if you use this one, it
Mm-hmm.
puts them into a solution in the
Mm,
same environment of the
of
agent.
the agent. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. But I found that it can be a little hard to find it, right? So I suggest you start, before you start making flows, create your own, like I did here, create your
Okay.
own solution, right? And then go ahead and build your flows in here. So
Mm.
I actually didn't build them from virtual agents. I
Okay.
built them here first and I picked them.
Okay.
Um, and actually the method that I took is harder, but again, I'm organizationally anal. I like
Mm.
everything organized the way I want, and I didn't want virtual agents to decide where my flow was going.
Flow is gonna be, yeah, yeah. I agree
I
with
want to
I agree
decide
with you.
where
Yeah.
my flow is going,
Yeah.
right? So I made the solution and then I built the flows. The hard part when you build them yourself is you must remember the actions that start and the
Yep.
actions that
That
end.
end. Yeah.
If you don't have both of these, virtual agents don't know what you're doing and can't talk to you, right? So you must always remember that your first trigger is actually where you are pulling parameters or variables from the virtual agent. And then if you want to push something back, and even if you don't, you should send a result back to virtual agents, right? And so isn't this a lot like Power Apps, though, when
Power
you do
ups.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Power Apps button and the return to Power Apps or
Yep.
flow. So I love that people are being very consistent about this. So we can, and that was what happened. I kind of guessed that that was going to be necessary. And that's what happens when you're consistent, people can just guess, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so um, that particular flow that's looking up the company name is just called check company name. And literally, it's going to that SharePoint list that you saw earlier.
Mm.
Um, it's getting that ID.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, remember I asked them for their contract number?
Contra numbers. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And there could have been a column in SharePoint called contract number, and
Mhm.
I could have used that. But here's the thing, I'll tell you a little secret you might not know about SharePoint. Um, Little secret. Because you need contract number to be unique, that's
Mm.
why I use ID, but they
Mm.
won't want to use ID in real
ID.
life. They'll
Yeah.
want to use their contract number.
Contract
The
ID. Yeah.
key to the key to keeping your contract numbers on SharePoint unique is you go into list settings. Like I want the contractor name to always be unique. So I can go on that column
Mhm.
and I can say enforce unique variable.
Oh yeah.
So if I create a column called contract ID, I will enforce unique values on that. So nobody will accidentally put that same contract number in twice, okay? In this demo, I didn't have to worry about that because I'm using the ID. But whenever you're using any other column, make sure that it's unique. That all makes sense to everybody.
Yeah.
But people
Yeah.
forget to do this. And so things happen they don't expect, right? Um, okay, so then I get the ID out of that list, and then I give it back the title. And so all I'm getting back is the company name because they gave me the ID, they didn't give me their company name. So I'm getting back the title so that when I go back to my virtual agent here, Flow is giving me back a result.
Result.
That's
Okay.
the company name. Well, and this, well, I think I skipped the company name thing here, right
Yeah.
here. Hold on.
Mhm.
Company name. So it gives me back the company name, and I can use that in anywhere I want. And you'll see I use that in the PCO. I
Yeah.
actually use the result in the PCO. And so in this case, though, I'm actually just returning that we've got that drawing sent to the team's activity feed. That's all that is. And so let me just go back to look at those flows again. And remember, you see what I just did? Do it over and over again.
Again. Yeah.
Remember, everybody should be getting used to clicking on solutions.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah. So
gonna have
everything in the
have
yeah.
so much value there because Power Automate actually has actions that are only visible in
If
solutions. So
solutions.
get
Yeah.
in the habit of using them. I think I wanted to show you this one. I think I might have picked the wrong one to show you. Let's see. So this is What is this one doing? Let's just double check. Oh, yes, this one is
Hmm.
posting the card,
Yep, the
uh,
adaptive cards. Yep.
the adaptive card. And basically, it just went, it got that company contract, it got the item
Hmm.
on SharePoint, and then it sent back anything I wanted it to send back. And now
Hmm.
I often use file properties because I don't need the content. If you don't
Yeah.
need the actual file, like this is a drawing, you
Yeah.
can use the ID and just use properties, because
Properties.
properties
Okay.
will give you back everything you need about that file. And then I posted an adaptive card. Now this happens to be the sample that I gave you. So if you go
Mm.
to our documentation for Power Automate, and
Hmm.
um, you go to the adaptive cards introduction, you'll see that I've given you a lot of sample JSON. This is the share an image JSON. And so
Ah.
you didn't even have to write this JSON. It's on. So let me just show you where that is. So I don't know if you guys realize that you can hit this question mark to go to our documentation.
Yeah.
And then once you hit that question mark, if you go to how to and adaptive cards,
Yeah.
this is
There's a
all the
whole
docs that I
sample.
gave you
Yeah.
guys recently, right?
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah.
video, but look at the samples. The one that I used was image share. And I
Oh.
explained the JSON, but all you have to do is copy and
Copy
paste
it.
it into Power Automate. So I had planned to give you more samples, and I might try and find time to do that, but
Hmm.
this kind of should save you some time when you're posting adaptive cards. Also, if you use the new version of adaptive cards, you have the ability to build the card in Power Automate, which I posted a video on that recently.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is specifications, no big thing. In some cases, I didn't stop it. Now, one thing that's kind of cool, um, let's see, there was a space. Let's see if I can find that little thing. No, it's in the next one. Okay, so we're going to look at the other topic. This one's pretty straightforward. Just go look at the specs, give it to me, and move on, right?
Yep.
Um, this is the potential change order. A little bit more complicated because it
Hmm.
has to do some more stuff, right? But again, notice that I put a whole bunch of, the reason I could type PCO sometime and potential change order other times is because I put those phrases in there and AI can start picking it up, right? But this authoring canvas is pretty interesting. So let's see if I can walk through this. This one has like where you're connecting actions. So in this case, I'm asking you if you want to do the change request, and you say yes, you say why. Now here's a lesson learned here. I'll tell you why
Hmm.
I asked why first. When you do flow, right, you need to pass variables into your flow. And
Hmm.
it works just like regular flow,
Okay.
in the sense that you only get the dynamic content that's above you, right? So normally this action would fall under this condition,
Hmm.
but I wanted to use both the same flow.
Ah.
So the key is, as long as this one is not connected, you would not get the days variable. So don't be
Okay.
surprised if you're trying
Okay.
to get it and
Okay.
you don't see it. It's because it's not in the area it's in. But if you go ahead and connect that area, now you get the days too. So you can connect as many as you want. And each time you connect a different one to this flow, you will get new variables available to it.
Available. Okay. Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
should stop and see if anyone has questions. Should I?
Uh,
Are you
none at
good?
this moment. So yeah, just keep
Good.
going. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then, after, so this flow basically, and we'll look at that flow too. Let's see. Let's close that one. Let's look at this one. This one's a little bit more complicated. So this one is creating the change order on SharePoint. So it needs to know a bunch of things. It needs to know what's the contract, what's the reason,
Hmm.
what's the cost estimate. So those
Hmm.
questions are up there, and I'm getting
Yeah.
the answers and putting them into variables, and so that this flow gets everything it needs. Then I create the item,
Hmm.
but here's the
Hmm.
tip. And those of you who know coalesce, another word I
Yep.
have a hard time pronouncing, um,
Yeah.
because I'm using two tracks in Virtual Agent, a true and a false,
False.
right?
Yeah.
And both of them don't have cost estimate, only
Hmm.
one does.
Hmm.
I want to make sure that cost estimate is set to 0 if it's not available.
Available. Yeah.
So you would use coalesce to say if that number is, use that number, but if that number's not there, use this number.
Okay.
And remember with coalesce, it'll just keep looking, right? If it, you could put 3 dynamic tokens here, and then the last one is typed. It'll just keep looking until it finds something that's not null, and it uses the first value that it finds that's not null. So this is very handy when you're using multiple tracks, which I do suggest, because I like less flows and or nice, short, sweet, easy to maintain flows, right? And so it's a good idea to try to combine tracks and let flow decide what it needs to do. You can always add conditions in your flow as well. And then the only thing I'm passing back here is the ID. And it's just a validation point, right? To make sure that the item has been created. All right, so now we're going to go back. And so then this is the one where we're getting escalated. So at the same, basically at the same level here, you can use this variable twice. So I used it in flow to create the change order, but I also used it as a condition. If it's greater than 5,000, we still want the item created in SharePoint. But here's where we're going to escalate.
Escalate it,
right? The amount of your change order is over 5,000. Therefore, it has been escalated to RE bridge. Now, this RE bridge story is actually happening from the SharePoint flow. So don't forget that you don't have to do all of your flows in here. You could also do a triggered flow on SharePoint. Right? Yep. So be creative. You got so many options that it's just amazing. So I have this send wait for approval thing, right? And the trigger on this one is the created item on SharePoint.
Oh, okay.
So this one is not coming from the agent. All the agent helped to do was to get it created.
Yeah,
but I don't need to keep adding to my agent. I mean, I have the ability to trigger from SharePoint as well. Yep. And that's helpful because what if for some reason it doesn't get created? Then this won't be triggered, right?
Yeah. I mean, it could also mean that this request is coming from a Power Apps, and once that item is created from Power Apps to SharePoint, this still happens. Okay.
Yeah. Keep thinking like that, Sam. Broad. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Then, so I get the contractor ID. So this list has a lookup column in it, and for some reason, here's another lesson learned. I could not get those lookup items to come through. So let me just show you what I mean. So here's a compose here. Oh, I know. Okay, so I just realized why. So I can't. Well, no, I should still get the. Yeah. So let me show you. This is the problem I ran into, and I'll show you how I worked around it. So I went compose, right? So this item has a lookup column in it called contractor value, right? And so it's looking up to the contractors list, but it's the contractors list that holds the contract values. Because remember, we're going to update those, so we need to get them. We need to have them handy, right, for after the approval. So basically, in addition to the trigger, I'm getting the ID of the contractor so that I can go ahead and update the contractor list. That's the whole purpose for that, right? And then I get the user. Now, this user request right here is only if you're creating a new Teams, because it has to be owned by the person that's creating it. And if you're doing that, you need to make sure that that is done with a connection that's an admin on Teams. Okay. All right. Then this is only for the new Teams. So this is optional if you're not creating a new Teams. I'll say that's not even needed. Then I list the group members of the construction management teams. And this is where I'm getting ready to post my approval, Sam. Now, I want the approval to be posted in Teams, but I also want them to have access to approve from their phones or from the approval center. So I'm going to put all of their email addresses into my approval. So I make a variable to hold all their email addresses, and then I run through those groups, right? So that group, and I append to that email list, their email and a semicolon. I don't know why this was happening to me sometime, but since I'm being totally transparent, I did notice that that semicolon disappeared on me once.
Hmm.
So if you ever get an error about the email, go and check and make sure that semicolon is there. It's important because if you have a list of email addresses and there's no semicolon in the middle, you've got an
Yeah.
invalid email address,
Email. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that got my email addresses that I need. This way I can send the approval to these people, and they can get it on Teams or they can get it from their other places. But it's still first come, first serve in this case. This client ID and client secret are also for the build of the new team. So that's optional. And then here, all I did was kind of get the contractor zone. I don't remember why. I think I was just checking for values. Okay, so then there's a condition here. So if the cost estimate is over 5,000, here's where we post that situation of,
Oh.
okay, do you want a bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here we're
Mm-hmm.
doing our new post and wait action. And this is experimental. So you need to
Okay.
be in experimental mode to do
Mode.
it this way, but you could also do it the other way. You could use the JSON directly,
Mm-hmm.
either way.
Mm-hmm.
I did a video on this recently too, so you can go look at that to see how to use this. And I think you saw it at the MVP Summit, how to use the embedded designer. Okay, so if they answer this, yes, we need a bridge, that's when the,
Wow.
so we have a new condition that says,
Condition, yeah.
if they said yes, right, and you learned this from the MPV Summit, is that for getting outputs from that adaptive card, you're going to have to use an expression that goes outputs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just typing this here so you can see it. And then post wait, which is the name of that action, which I shortened for this reason. And then body, data, and the name of your action. Okay? And this is whatever you named that control in the adaptive card, right? And so that's already done. So if they said, yes, I want a bridge, then we open up the HTTP action that actually calls to graph and creates the team instance with that user's ID.
Yep.
And again,
Yep.
that's why that ID is up there. If you're not doing this, you don't need that ID. But every team must have a group owner, and that group owner must have a right in team settings to post new groups and teams, right? So there is a permission issue. So remember that whenever you're going to use Graph, you have to make sure that you set up your web application, you register it to get your client ID and your secret, and you will have to do an OAuth authentication, okay? And that will create that new teams. But if you didn't need that new teams, then the approval is created right away, and then it's posted. I love that when we post adaptive cards that are from an approval, we just click on adaptive card and we're done. We don't have to build it, right?
Anything, yeah.
And then we wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Then we wait for an approval, and then I'm updating the PCO status to reflect whatever the outcome was on that. And then I also will create I'm using a function here to add the current value to the cost estimated.
To the cost estimate, okay.
So that I get an ability to update the baseline value. Lessons learned on this guy, on these guys in here, is whenever you have default values in SharePoint, and sometimes I, like with number columns and currency columns, I default them as 0 to enable them to be easily calculated in Power BI. I don't want it to be risky as a null. But if you see any default values here, you're going to have to replace them with the dynamic content so that they don't get wiped, so that your existing content doesn't get wiped out. And this is something I need to write a blog on, but I think the SharePoint team is working on a way around this. So like, let me see if I can explain that better. If the default value for zone is 1, okay? When I add this card to update that item, it's going to say 1. If I don't change that 1 to be what the current zone is, that 1 will overwrite the current zone. And so just keep that in mind, okay? Because that's another lesson learned. You find things updating that you didn't want to update, You got to keep your eye on those kind of things. And I do want to do a blog on that one day. But I believe last time I talked to my favorite person in SharePoint, Chucks, he said there's a way around this and we're going to get better and it's going to be awesome. Power Automate and SharePoint are combining forces to make this better. Yep. And then I'm actually using my favorite
number
actions.
format. Yeah.
Number format.
I remember that
Yes.
that episode too. You. Yeah.
I'll forever be proud of this guy. You know, it's simple. It's straight to the point. You know, I love that. Like that's my thing. Simple, straight to the point. So I'm formatting the bid value and the new baseline in dollars. And that's that very last message you saw where I say change approved for contractor. And this is only because it's a lookup that the word value has to follow it. And then contractor now has a total new baseline value of that formatted number from the original bid value of that other formatted number. And that's the whole story. This is 2 hours of creation. And you're done.
Yeah. I mean, it's
but
a lot.
Yes, but when you bring this kind of thing to work, people go, "Hey, you know your stuff, don't you?" You know, and you go, "Yes, I do." And you're saving us time. Yes, I am. Talk about that at our next review. But see, you know, you want to keep adding value. Keep adding value. Don't just show off features. Like try to find scenarios where you're adding value. And remember, don't forget that we have a whole stack of cloud subscriptions, right? So you could put this bot helping with sales, or you know that it can connect to APIs, you can get recipes, you know, whatever you want to do, you can do it. And you can bring it into your Teams channel, and it could be a lot of fun. Couple things you gotta, just to show you how to publish to the teams. Do we have time for me to show you how to publish?
We can close off with that, so yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that'll be the last thing. Okay, so when you're in your Power Virtual Agent and you've finished your work, the last thing you want to do, well, you can do it along the way because you might want to test. So I didn't talk much about testing, but a lot of people have. That's why I'm gonna move straight to Teams. You need to publish before you can do this. All right, so just make sure. You go to channels and you'll notice there's Teams right there. Yeah. Yay, Teams, there's Teams. So when you get into Teams, you're going to click, I'm gonna move you for a second, even though I love looking at you. You're gonna see an add button here.
Okay.
When you first do this, right? You know what? Let me just see if it might take too long. I was going to do a suggestion, but you would get the add button. As soon as you do that, it gives you this GUID. So this API ID is blank until you hit add. Then it gives you that GUID. Now, you want to put that GUID somewhere because you're going to use it in Teams. So here I am going to Teams. And here's what I love about Teams. Teams is the most amazing product. And what makes it so amazing is not only does it give you the ability to add your own apps, but you have a full app store of partner apps that are off the hook. And as a company, you can customize, like we're doing right now, your own apps that you push out to your audience. And so this idea of integrated apps into Teams continues with the theme of Teams being the hub so that we can, you know, kind of not have to be looking all over the place. You have to install something called App Studio. So you go to More Apps here, and you look for App Studio. This is the app you use for installing apps. This is a Microsoft app. Don't worry, you can trust it. After you install it, there's a lot of things you can do with this app, but I'm going to focus on getting this virtual agent in here, right? Notice I have one here, but I'm going to remove it.
Okay.
Look how brave I am, right? And I'm going to click. I'm going to click Create New App, right? And here is a couple of caveats here. You cannot customize the app name in Teams for virtual agents yet. Okay. Not yet. I mean, all this is yet, right? You know this stuff is new, right?
I mean, we're still in development, so that's...
Yes.
Yeah.
So you need to keep the same app name, and you cannot customize the icon. So down here, you're customizing the icon and the color. You can't do that either for virtual agents. It has its icon that it wants to use, and that's all it's going to use, right?
Mhm.
Right here, you're going to generate an API. So this is a tip. You have two places to put an API ID. Here, which you generate.
Mhm.
This is the unique ID of this app,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And that helps when it needs to be updated. But then when you go to your bot page, and I'm just jumping there so I don't lose my
Ah.
copy. Remember I copied,
Yep.
right? So try to get to this page before you lose your copy, or you'll have to go back and
Back
copy
and
again.
copy it again. Okay. Okay.
This is an existing bot because we just did that 2 hours of work to get that bot
Yep.
working just like we wanted.
Yep.
And now we've got an ID that we're using, right?
Yep.
And then we're going to make it a personal bot. And that's
Mhm.
because the scope for virtual agents right now is personal.
It's personal. Okay.
Okay. And again, this could change, right? You do have to fill out these other things. Now, what's nice is it'll help you know what you need to figure out. Notice if I click test, it
Mhm.
goes and shows me up. You
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
have a developer website. You don't have
Description.
a
Yeah.
privacy URL. You don't have a terms of use URL. Shame on you. So you have to fill those things out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would, pay attention. Now, a couple of best practices I'm going to give you. Um, one, uh, do pay attention to your version number because
Yep.
as you update an app, you want to be able to know where it is.
Exactly.
Give a description that's going to be shown because you know how you go to the App Store and you kind of pick an app? How do
Yeah.
you pick it? You title,
You
you
read
read
the
the description,
description. Yeah.
right? So make sure you give them a description that says what it is. And again, once this gets to be a team level thing, you can add your contractors as guest users and they
Guest
can
users.
leverage.
Yep. Yep.
Helps our contractors to get specifications and start PCOs. And my brain slows down after a while. Sorry, PCOs, right? I would spell it out because I
Yeah.
want this description to be the thing that's going to compel you
Yeah.
to use it, right? Now, the developer information is basically the company that is owning this. So I
Okay.
happen to be a Microsoft partner as well as a Microsoft employee. So I
Mhm.
also include my partner ID, which is down here.
Okay.
Um, if I'm publishing an app to the store. But in this case, we're just really kind of
Okay.
I
Are
did
we
it
putting the
backwards.
email? Yeah. Website in the name. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
There we go.
thank you for catching my error.
Uh-huh.
Full circle technologies. And this kind of gives you a tip that this is new to me. I learned this very quickly, like in a day, right? And so here's your privacy statement. So again, you should use your own
One. Yeah.
privacy statement. Um, so make sure you have one. Technologies. I'm not sure whether they check it, but let me just full cycle text. Got my name wrong. Okay, and I'm just gonna bounce here and just get that URL in here.
Okay. Yep.
And full circle text. I spelled it wrong. Isn't that terrible? That's just terrible. And there's no S. Now here's the thing. There is no S here on this,
Mhm.
but when you put these in, they have to be an S.
Oh.
Uh,
Okay.
and it's because
Full circles.
problem
Let's see.
browser. Um, let's see. Okay, I have a server problem. Not sure what that is. It had gotten there earlier today. So you know how those demo gods are. They love to make you have fun. So, but you have to go to the page where your actually privacy statement is.
Statement is okay.
Okay, and I believe it will check me. That's why I'm a little worried. And your terms of use. And that is a best practice. You don't give a
Okay.
person an app without a privacy statement and a terms of use. Again, you can't change the branding. So we already set up the bot by adding the ID. The only last thing we have to do is test and distribute so we can do an install. Now I did this and you can see it knows that that's the wrong URL.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have to get the right URL in there.
So I
I
think
put
is it full circle tech without an
full
S,
circle.
circles without an S for text? Because I just
I think
checked
this
full
is the
circle
right.
tech.
Do you see a woman?
Uh, it's something about full circle technologies, our story. Let's see. It's a bunch of servers. Maybe it's another full circle tech,
Got it.
but
Here it is. Here it is.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's,
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know why it wasn't working. I really don't. So let me just get this privacy page here and go back over there because it's actually literally checking to see if that's a valid URL. So good to know, right? That's my privacy, and that's going to be my terms of use. And again, it must have the S, even if it doesn't in real life, right? Otherwise, it won't take it. So now if I go back here, privacy URL must be hosted on a different domain. Oh, okay. So I could cheat here. I could cheat here. Let's see. I could use the default that's here, www.teams.com/privacy. I wouldn't suggest a partner do this,
Do this,
but this
yeah. I
is a
mean, yeah. Always, this is just a demo, so make sure you do the right. Yeah.
if it allows me to do that. No, it's not going to let me get past that. So I'll just explain to you what's next, and then I'll go and get my terms of use together and stuff so that it works. The next thing you do is install. Now, you can only install if you are a Teams admin. So if you're not an admin, you can hit download.
Okay.
All right. When you hit download, it exports the package. And now when you go to all apps, you can upload a custom app. You can also give this to somebody, right? And that enables you to upload that app. And there it is. And now you can add it and use it. So the hard part was our URLs, right? And, and that's just write down before you start what your privacy URL is and your terms of use URL is, and you won't have that silly problem. And notice it started right away speaking, I'm a virtual agent, I can help with specifications. That's that greeting that we updated, right? And so now we can do all the things that we were doing before. And so it's to me, it's really easy to add an app to Teams, to use it as a personal thing. I suspect that virtual agents will move to a team app soon. I don't know how soon. I can't speak to that because I'm not actually on the virtual agent team. But it's a high value to be able to not only create your personal app. So this could be my personal app for me. And guess what? I could give it to the contractor. I can say, go upload this.
Upload
right?
it into your tenant. Yeah.
As long as he's in my tenant, this will work. Now, he needs to be in my tenant. You know why? Because we're talking to the SharePoint list in my tenant, right? But he doesn't need to have access to the SharePoint list in my tenant. Why not?
Oh, okay. Security?
Do you know why? Do you know why? Does anybody know why? That's my challenge. Does anybody know why the contractor would not need access to SharePoint?
Well, hold on. Did you share it when you were creating or connecting to the bot,
Nope.
or is an implied permission?
Nope.
Well, that's probably
That's
ahead.
not why.
Anyone, guys, anyone with an idea why?
So the contractor's running the app. I'll explain it again. Contractor's running the app that he imported, and he's making changes on SharePoint when he does a potential change order. But he does not have access to SharePoint. How is that happening?
Is it because of the flow? The flow is authorized. The flow is authorized.
That's right. Flow, the person who made the flow, it's running under their credentials, right?
Yeah.
Contractor doesn't need access to SharePoint. You've got Dynamics for Sales. Just have that flow connect to Dynamics for Sales. Your contractors don't need sales licenses. Please, that would be too expensive, right? So just remember, Flow is the hero in this whole demo. Can I clarify that? It's bringing everything together, right, so that it works smoothly. But then Teams is the one for the consumer that's bringing things in context to what they're doing, right? And there's those new channels that popped up after we were gone. It takes about a minute to get them all, depending on how many you ask for. But that is, to me, think about this, everybody on the phone. Think about the value that you can add from a brand new product. Wow. Right? This kind of sophistication. If a developer, I bet you I could beat the developer. It's like the developer that wants to build this solution. I bet you I could beat it.
That is that has been the argument or fight most of us are having, especially some of us coming from the developer engineering standpoint, and now seeing all this less code, thing. Like you're building a bot with PVA, you're building an
Yeah.
app with, Power Apps. Now you're doing all these integrations into Teams, and it's, quite simple. So
Yes.
I mean, it's interesting. It's good. It's a good time to be, to be part of the Power family. But hey, I'm sure there's always room for us to come do some innovation. So I'll take that.
Yes, yes. And I will say that this is a nice bridge too for those
Yeah,
of us, I'm part of that group, that don't code every day. So as you learn how to deploy these kind of virtual agent bots to Teams, you learn the
yeah,
components of a Teams app. And there are really only three. There's the manifest, there's the color for the logo, or what do you call it?
yeah,
This thing here.
yeah. The icon.
Um,
Yeah,
and then there's a third file. There's three
mm,
files in an app that you deploy to Teams. So if you can do this, it'll help you learn how does Teams manage apps. And then
yeah,
you might start trying to learn how, if you have any coding experience, it would be a natural progression to start customizing apps yourself, even with code, using the SDK,
SDK.
putting them
Yeah,
out there in the app source and in the store so that you can monetize your intelligence and your ideas, right?
yeah,
Why not
yeah,
monetize? If you know this is a scenario that can help in a particular industry, or you know of a scenario that could help in something that you're very close to, why not build an app, publish that app, and give it to the world?
yeah,
Why wouldn't you, right?
yeah.
So keep that in mind. That was all I wanted to share with you. I'll make sure Sam gets the deck. It has some notes in it. It also has some permissions because we did what's called side loading just now, Sam.
Yeah,
When
yep.
I imported that app, right? That package, that's called side loading. You must have settings in your tenant on Teams to allow side loading, right? Um, and Microsoft allows it, so I'm pretty sure that most companies don't have too much concern. But you can decide how they can add apps. If it's only for them, it's for everybody. What's the settings org wide? So I'll make sure Sam has that too, in case you want to post it on your blog or whatever. Sam,
Yep.
was this helpful? Did you guys?
It,
Did I speak too fast?
it
Do you guys
no,
want me to come back?
it was just fine. I mean, it was a bit lengthy, but it was worth it because I could see that we moved from Teams. There was some Microsoft graphs in there. There's PVA. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, it packs a punch for you to know how to put all these things together to create
Yes,
an enterprise solution that fits the need for everyone, from the
yes.
clients to you as a business owner to people working on the cases. This is actually amazing. It's very, very amazing. And um how do I say it? We had Razor on show. He was like, he kept saying there's no way he was going to miss your show. And I mean, this is exciting. I mean, a lot of people have taken a lot of cues from it. I'm sure people are going to be building stuff and asking questions in the next couple of days. But this Audrey was really, really awesome. I
I'm
mean,
glad you like it. And
I keep
and that was what I wanted you to take away. Take
yeah,
all the pieces that you learn and create solutions, right?
yeah,
And you will be the hero in your organization.
yeah, yeah. Awesome, people. Before we go, like how we do it all the time, I am supposed to show the next person coming on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, with a simple clap, let's welcome Razor. Razor is coming on the show
Yay, Reza!
next, yes, next Sunday. He's going to be talking to us about how he built his coronavirus tracking applications, all the goodness, all the fun stuff, all the interesting things. Make sure you don't miss it for anything. But again, back to Audrey. Audrey, we are very, very grateful. We thank you for your time. It's been
It's
one of
my
the
pleasure.
amazing, episodes for me learning all these things throughout. I'm definitely going to be calling on you, not just today. We're going to be, in touch. We're going to be talking about a lot of things and a possible comeback to show some specific things. And so,
Yes,
ladies and
if
gentlemen,
anybody says that was too much, I'll come back and do a deep dive. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. So, guys, ladies, gentlemen, kids, anyone watching the show, this has been another exciting, thrilling, and amazing episode of the Power Series. Grateful to Audrey for her time, and I'm sure that you've learned a lot of things from today's episode. So until we come your way again next Sunday, this has been the Power Series, and have a wonderful one. Awesome!